British industry is changing at a rapid pace. Innovative new technologies have changed the way things are done, and there is a growing focus on how to operate in a more efficient, safe, and sustainable way. Companies are finding they must now use the latest advances to remain competitive, and that as an awareness of climate change and the problems caused by pollution grows in society, the demands of their customers mean that they must consider the impact of their operations on the environment. There is also a growing move to turn to the use of renewable energy sources. For example, solar energy technology is advancing rapidly, making it more efficient and easier to install. In the next half hour, Executive TV will explore these new developments through talking with a number of industry experts from some of the most innovative and industry-leading companies in business today. With increasingly clear evidence for the reality and damaging effects of climate change, key figures in industry are calling on governments to show initiative and take the lead on action to tackle the problem before it's too late.
We know where we are in terms of the effect that the last 50 to 100 years has had on the planet. We know that. We can't fix it, we can't turn back the clock, but we can look at the future and we can do something. Unless there's the investment, unless there is buy-in across everyone, from local government to the government as a wider scheme, to the corporates, to the individual, to the household, to the system, to the property owners. Unless we're all saying, right, I'll do my bit, then nothing's going to change. We need to basically make sure that we're reducing carbon emissions and we're putting in place, methods to mitigate this and to kind of offset it. The government has got to step up in creating that infrastructure and creating the incentives and creating opportunities to kind of reduce these emissions, to develop low carbon technologies. We need to be developing in this future, we need to be pushing it.
There's been a number of years where the energy industry in Scotland has been perceived as declining, and this is a new wave, an energy revolution as it were, and the Scottish Government is absolutely on track to harness this to its full potential. They have set up programs between countries. There's a specific program between Scotland and Germany, not the UK and Germany, Scotland and Germany, to export energy in whatever form that takes, whether it's electricity or whether it is hydrogen. And the Scottish Government is very aware of the energy resource that we have in our wind power. So they are working very hard to make sure that it's harnessed to its absolute maximum.
With regards to the government and the offshore and onshore renewables, there should be more money. From a complete finance perspective, there should be more money put into this. So many other things that they do, but in reality, what drives everything within this sector is money, and how that can be spent in a better way to actually provide better offshore and onshore renewables.
Customers are demanding change, making a new focus on businesses and organisations on becoming more sustainable in their products, services, working practices, and supply chains. Many business leaders are genuinely concerned with their organisation's impact on both the ecology and local communities. Innovation is proving key in this new focus. New ways of doing things can lead to both efficiency and sustainability. Across the UK, a range of sectors from agriculture to commercial organisations are now looking to the low-cost and sustainable energy benefits offered by solar power generation, and its part to play in working towards the target of net zero emissions by 2050.
Sustainability is very important, and I see it as becoming even more important as we move forward. Everyone is focusing on making sure that their business is as sustainable as possible. It is a question that we are asked now by potential customers in a way that we weren't before, and we have to demonstrate our safety credentials. But this is not just lip service. We actually need to do this as the human race and for the planet as well. One of the things that we have brought out recently, which the main focus for the customer was to be able to increase safety at a reduced cost, has actually had a sustainable side effect. This is wireless gas detection. We are able to implement gas detection across large areas, say of oil terminals or refineries. This wireless communication is something that has been around for people in their day-to-day lives for a long time. But when you bring that into an industrial environment, you have to do things differently. It must be more robust, it must be more cyber secure, and it must be more reliable. This isn't just like your normal Wi-Fi.
So as energy prices increase, we need to be looking at other methods of sustainable energy, and therefore we need to look at new technology. And therefore it's vital that we push towards implementation of those into our business, and so that we will make cost savings, obviously, kind of on our balance sheet in terms of reduced energy consumption, but also by utilising energy more sensibly.
Renewable energy needs to be more accessible, not just for the user, but in the manufacturing process. It needs to become more affordable. It needs to be more accessible to individuals, companies, people.
Renewable energies are key for Britain. It's part of our journey as a sort of a company to sort of work in the sort of renewable sector. We are in the renewable sector. Would we like to be more? Yes. There's a lot of these big renewable projects being sort of carried out all around the UK, and it doesn't seem to be being built in the UK. This seems to be getting put into sort of other countries that can sort of build it a lot cheaper than the UK, and it's not fair on companies. It's not fair on companies that really want to work in that sort of that marketplace and really want to build a sort of a future in there. But we need that sort of support to make sure we can make it viable. I think it's very important for sustainability in our supply chain. It's all about sort of keeping it local content. If we're going to be building something in Scotland, everything should be sort of locally sort of sourced. But again, that's very difficult for us to do when we are competing against other countries. And that's what I find very difficult with sustainability. How can you have a project in the North Sea, but it's getting made 5,000 miles away, shipped across? I don't understand how that sort of works for a company to be sustainable when you're dealing with that kind of marketplace. Obviously, us as a company only just starting this sort of journey. We have an opportunity as well that we could be building another facility that will be run pure on hydrogen. So as well, we've got sort of our vans. Now we're getting electric vans onto the fleet. It's really looking at us as a company. What can we do better? How can we do it? And it's obviously a journey that's going to take us over a number of years, but we're always looking at other ways to be smarter and greener.
The role is we support all renewable and offshore vessels here at the Port of Blythe. So vessel mobilisations, demobilisations, as well as we do bespoke fabrication for the energy sector. The biggest environmental challenge has been so close to the river and the North Sea. So a lot of equipment that we build, we will have to assemble, and that would take hydraulic oil. So we need use bio-friendly oil to make sure that there's no leaks that go into the river and respect the estuary that we're working on and respect the North Sea.
We try to make us more recession proof, looking at different markets we could sort of penetrate and making sure that these 7 companies become one. So moving away from the silo mentality to form a kind of a one-stop shop with just 7 services all working for the same common goal, and that's TEXO. So the 7 services are engineering fabrication. We have recruitment, which is an external agency, but as well that does our internal sort of guys offshore. We've got workspace solutions, which is modular buildings, office space, but onshore, offshore. We have integrity, which is rope access, NDT, inspection services. We then have Livestream, or TEXO Technologies, which caters for all sort of anything to do with technology side of what we do. We then have Port Services, which is based in sort of Blythe. That again does a lot of vessel mobilisations, complex operations, and as well we have a facility there for fabrication. And then we've got in Witham in Essex, we've got TEXO DSI, that is our drone and surveying side of what we sort of do.
Innovation and new technology have meant safety is also a focus, and this area is also moving forward at a rapid pace. Advances in gas detection monitors are also making safer environments for oil rig workers and firefighters, with the potential to save lives.
Safety is a massive concern for our customers, and I hope that we can sort of take care of that sort of safety aspect with some of the technologies we use. If you look at the sort of the drones, that sort of takes away the necessity for people to go in unnecessary environments, be it on top of a roof or inside a cargo tank. We can do that by a drone. We've then got the sort of the live stream capability as well, where unnecessary travel. no need to sort of travel anymore. That can all be done from the comfort of your office. So it really sort of stopped putting these people in hazardous conditions for no reason.
The extreme environment of the offshore sector means that the equipment that we fabricate and assemble, we would also have to follow it out to the offshore. So that means having our guys and girls fully trained in offshore survival, helicopter training and rescue, and they'll be out for weeks on end commissioning and installing these pieces of equipment offshore.
Obviously, our equipment has a battery in it, which is a source of power, but the way that it works is, should gas get into that device and that gas be ignited, the device can contain that explosion. That is how essentially ATEX equipment works. That any explosion would be contained within that device. It would not get outside of the device and therefore could not cause a secondary explosion. The equipment has to be very robust. And this is something that's relatively new because, of course, in our personal lives, we rely so heavily on a lot of mobile devices, tablets, phones, we're absolutely glued to them. But as soon as you go into a zoned area on an oil terminal or a refinery, you lose all of those pieces of equipment in their traditional sense. What you have to be able to do is put that electronic equipment into something that's safe enough to be taken into somewhere where there is an increased likelihood of an explosive gas. That's what we're trying to achieve, is bring in these more human elements where people need to physically go to a space. They need to physically provide what we call clearance measurement, which is essentially taking a reading from inside a vessel, and confined spaces are always the most dangerous in terms of explosive potential because you've got the high likelihood of an accumulation. There's not the ability for the gas just to disperse in an outdoor environment. So when we go in and we clearance measure a confined space, then we can send that information directly back via this Bluetooth link to an ATEX mobile phone, for example, that they are now allowed to carry on site. And then they can move on to the next space, as opposed to having to use this, walk back to the permit office.
It's a conflicting pressure, isn't it? Like, we and these companies want to keep their people safe, but of course we live in a time where, as we know, there's a lot of pressure in the economy, and companies are under a huge amount of pressure environmentally and under efficiency to, produce these technologies in a clean and sustainable way and make sure we don't do things like lose gases into the atmosphere that shouldn't be lost into the atmosphere. And so, like I say, Draeger do wear these two hats of protecting people, but more and more so now, obviously, what we do is making sure that we're also protecting the environment by making sure these processes are safe and they're not losing gases into the atmosphere that they shouldn't be losing.
First and foremost, safety is so important with a solar PV system. Keeping your system maintained. It's also about the longevity of the system, which also is to do with performance control, maintenance, and generally keeping the system's lifespan. At our head office, we have an advanced visual display system where we're able to monitor and keep a track of our client's solar PV. If the system has got any issues, it will alert us. We can then look to send engineers to site. This obviously then helps alleviate any downtime that the system might have. So in monitoring the systems and seeing the faults, seeing the errors, when we attend site to rectify these, it obviously stops any system downtime. We also need to put emphasis on maintaining solar PV systems. At present, it's not a legal requirement, but going back to the safety of the systems, if we don't provide the maintenance required, they can become a danger to life, as in we would not MOT our car. It's a legal requirement. We have gas safety checks, which is also a legal requirement. So really, it should become a legal requirement as solar becomes more widespread. So that's something that we offer. We offer all of our clients operations and maintenance packages whenever we complete an installation, so that's always offered. The way in which a solar PV system is installed, we need to have safe roof access for our engineers, we need to have edge protection, we need to have man-safe systems in place so that when we send our engineers to carry out the maintenance, it's actually achievable and safe.
The rapid changes in technology now require changes in the skills and training along with them. Many industry leaders attribute this to a lack of focus on STEM, science, technology, engineering, and maths in education in previous decades. A new focus by both government and employers is tackling this by offering exciting apprenticeship and graduate schemes designed to inspire the next generation of workers.
We cannot find qualified engineers, we cannot find that knowledge of the industry. Yes, it's been around for a bit, but when I started in this industry, 15 years ago, there were courses on PV, there were courses on some of these renewable technologies. Now, you now look to try and find some of those courses, and the colleges have closed. The colleges no longer support that course, and you're struggling to find that kind of the availability of that education. It's the children that need to bring this forward. We need to be talking about renewables in the classroom. There's nothing better than the idea of your child coming home and talking to you about, recycling, about what are we going to do, how we. That's brilliant. That's some of the things that schools are doing.
Apprenticeships are very important to sort of TEXO. It's something we work alongside a lot of colleges with. We want them to sort of understand our needs. We speak to them a lot about what we're sort of trying to achieve, what we're looking for as in sort of graduates or apprentices to sort of come into sort of TEXO. We want engineering and fabrication where we can bring them in and hopefully get them on that career path where they can sort of take us to the next level. What I'd say to a young person wanting to get into manufacturing, I'd say try it. It's a lot more appealing than what it seems like, and I think especially with sort of working for us as a company, I think once you understand what we do and the sort of technologies we add into, which would be a kind of a mundane manufacturing sort of job, it's a lot more than that. It's about sort of opening people's eyes to sort of different ways of working and to speed up sort of the processes of what we sort of do.
I think there is a huge skills gap in manufacturing. I think companies need to do a lot more to inspire the next generation of men and women to get into manufacturing and engineering. That could mean by going into schools, inspiring them, bringing schools to their facility, taking 3 or 4 hours out. If you bring in 30 children and you give them a full tour of the facility and you only inspire 1 or 2, well, that's brilliant, because that's 1 and 2 that wouldn't be inspired if those companies had never basically went forward and tried to make an effort.
So training is paramount. Devices cannot be released into countries without staff being trained prior. This takes the form of approved courses from the Central Academy into the regional academies and trainers within it. Any required and relevant training would be rolled out prior to any product or technologies being released. With all our advancements, technology allows us to deliver training in a blended learning environment to a multitude of industries.
The way that COVID has affected the industry has been fascinating. It impacted everything. The way that the reduced manpower that was available on the platforms, because of course normally you have 2 people to a bunk or to a room. That was no longer possible. Everyone had to have their own room. So that meant that you had half the manpower available for maintenance. So then you have to find the most efficient way to achieve the maintenance that's required in order for the platform to be able to function. And this had a great benefit. Lots of these support services were moved onshore, and the way that we used electronic communication changed, and it really sped up some of the technology developments.
The use of data and artificial intelligence is leading to a more efficient and sustainable world for industry. Remote vehicles and increasing automation are making working life for those involved in the maintenance, monitoring, and servicing of projects in extreme conditions safer.
I think innovation is very key to keeping pace with sustainability and protecting the environment. And I think if we need to be continually looking at the way we develop products, package products, and make sure that everything we do, we're always trying to either the device we supply is helping assist that process, or even our own internal processes in some way, helping reduce our impact on production of such devices.
We issue something like 250 patents every year for new technology. But what we don't want to do is bring out new technology for new technology's sake. That in itself is wasteful. So again, we can talk about how we've managed to bring some of the more business to consumer technologies into our business to business technology.
Research and development is a massive benefit for sort of TEXO in sort of future. What we offer as services are your bulk standard, everyday industrial kind of work. So to have parts of the business that are more technology focused, it is something that we need to sort of concentrate on, because that will be the differentiator between us and another. So always developing, always looking at what we can sort of do with sort of some of the drones, with some of the hardware we sort of use, looking at the cameras with the live stream, how we get analytics, how we sort of store that data, how we give that data to customers, is everything we sort of try and strive for, just making their life a lot easier.
New technologies that will play a major part in the future of the industry would be a lot with our drones, our internal drones, where years ago you would have to send people with breathing apparatuses, risk assessments into confined space. Now we can send these robotic UAVs into a location where they can scan, so that takes away the health and safety, that takes away the carbon footprint of all these this gas getting used for breathing apparatuses and so on.
Latest innovations for solar PV systems really takes on from the remote monitoring of the systems. We can see live data in the office and not being on site, and see what the solar PV system is generating, if there's any faults with the solar PV systems, and we can do the monthly checks and reporting back to our clients so they can see that the system is actually working to its generation and what it should be producing over that last month. There's a system we can see which actually provides monitoring for each panel individually, so we can actually see each panel generate live generation throughout the day on a layout of that solar array, and it will tell us if there's a fault with just that one panel or another panel to the right of the array or a bank of the panels, and we can then react a lot quicker and tell the client what they've got an issue with their system. We can go and carry out the remedial works for that system.
Efficiency in manufacturing relies not on only working practices, but on technology as well. Having interoperability in a product can expand not only its value, but also the productivity of the end user. Bluetooth is technology which, when implemented correctly, can bring great benefits.
Connectivity is becoming a really big piece, and I think some of this has been driven through the pandemic, people working from home.
Things like implementing Bluetooth into some of our products means that we can get better interoperability of our devices. It means that people can go out and, say, perform clearance measurement onto a tank, which is essentially measuring the gas concentration to ensure that it is safe. Historically, they would then have to walk back to the permit office, which could take 20 minutes or 25 minutes on a large site, confirm that a vessel is now safe to enter, and then they would have to walk another 25 minutes back and do the next vessel. Now we bring Bluetooth into our technology, which means that they can email that report direct from that vessel, confirm immediately that it is safe to enter, and then move on to the next one. So it's really important to use the new technologies in the best way to make it more efficient, rather than just bringing something out because we want something new for the industry, because that in itself isn't particularly sustainable.
Industry leaders are calling on the government to lead the way on keeping manufacturing in the UK by investing in young people and the need for more focus on STEM subjects. Sustainability is now a focus across a range of industries, but experts argue, again, the government must support and lead the way if the radical changes needed are to be made in time.
I do see a positive future for manufacturing. I think one of my only gripes would be that I don't think the government do enough to keep the work in the UK. But that's very difficult for us as a company to want to invest into the community, to want to invest into sort of local school leavers or up and coming people, when we haven't got that sort of support from the UK government, kind of ensuring that work, if it's going to be built for Britain, it should be sort of manufactured in Britain.
In the future, I see renewable energy going from strength to strength. It is a global issue. The global fight for climate change is present and needs to be corrected now.
Seeing the cost which companies are getting back from producing their free energy, and the fact it is for at least 25 years for businesses, I would say so. And even now more people are working from home. I would say it is worth even for residential, because people are staying at home more than they were before, obviously, the pandemic. The profit comes from, obviously, you're not pulling energy from the grid, you're actually using your free energy. So right now, we've got a 50 kilowatt system. Whatever energy that is producing, it is going into our electrical network in the building and using that free energy before we are pulling that power from the grid. So we're using free energy before we are actually buying power from the energy company or energy supplier.
It will be interesting to see how this exciting period of rapid technological change and a new focus on sustainability, not simply profit, will develop in the next few years.